We're live, brother. You're live.
All righty. Salam alaikum. Hotel, free the land, power to the people. I'm Brother Kareem Mohammed, standing in for our wonderful brother, Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz. And this is the Malik Zulu Shabazz News Hour. As I said, salam alaikum, Black power, Black love. We just briefly today are just very excited to have an opportunity to stand in today for this brilliant brother and soldier and comrade of ours. I'm Brother Kareem Anur Mohammed. I have my own podcast that I do every Sunday from 5 to 6 with my wonderful co-host, Dr. Sade Turnipseed of Jackson State University. And the podcast is called Juneteenth 101, every Sunday at 5 p.m. We encourage you to tune in and hear some of the brilliant scholars that we bring on talking about our sojourn here in this country and solutions and resolve as to how we as a people united will be able to come out of this hellhole that we find ourselves in. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and we will dive right into the show. Of course, many of you have been hearing the buzz going across social media that there has been a warrant found, 67 years old warrant that was found mysteriously in the LaFleur County courthouse in the basement. We went and checked the warrant out. It is a legitimate warrant. And the warrant is named J.W. Roy and Carolyn Bryant as the 3 defendants for the kidnapping and brutal murder and torture of our then young brother, Emmett Till. So we found this warrant and we was able to show it to the world that the warrant is a true warrant that has been hidden by LaFleur County, state of Mississippi, and up under the Emmett Till family, that wonderful champion, Sister Priscilla Sterling, who is the cousin of Emmett Till, has helped us to understand also that the federal government is in on the cover up. So we want to talk a little bit today about this cover up. I also want to talk about that briefly, that we will bring on one of our experts in the field of the Emmett Till story that will take us on into the history aspect of it and other parts of what you would love to know about the Emmett Till story. And so again, as we said, we have found a warrant that speaks about the warrant issued on 67 years ago, Carolyn Bryant. So we are putting it out there in the audience that we are looking for Carolyn Bryant. Wherever you find her at, there is a warrant out. A poster is going to go out with her picture on it, and it's going to say, on the lookout for Carolyn Bryant. Whether you find her in a wheelchair, you find her on a cane, where you find her bedridden. If you find her in a walker, arrest her, identify her, let us know where she's at. For we all know they didn't give our brother Bill Cosby no slack. A blind man happened to go to prison at the mere age of 83 years old. So we have never had no type of leniency in this country. I was listening to an interview that our great writer and poet James Baldwin was doing in the late 60s. And he was in San Francisco, and he was doing a documentary on urban San Francisco, doing a correlation showing that urban San Francisco was no better than South Alabama. And he was talking to one of the little brothers that was in San Francisco, Hunter area, the urban area where the housing complex was placed at that time. And one of the brothers was talking about have been arrested by the police. And so James Baldwin asked him, what were you arrested for? He said, I was in the bed with a white girl. He said, how old are you? He said, I'm 48 years old. He said, when was you arrested? He said, 40 years ago. And so James Baldwin said, 40 years ago? How old were you 40 years ago? He said, I was 8 years old. James Baldwin said, so you tell me that they caught you in the bed with an 8-year-old girl and they arrested you? He said, lock me up. So we are saying that this system has never gave us no leniency. So today, our people who are demanding justice, what do we say? Justice or else. What do we say? We want justice. How do we want it? We want it by any means necessary. So we are saying today that we don't care whether you're in a wheelchair. We don't care if you're on a walker. We don't care even if you're bedridden. If we find out where you are at on behalf of the Emmett Till family and Black justice all over the country, you will be found and you will be brought to justice. Justice or else. So again, we are working diligently here in the state of Mississippi, grassroots organizing to make sure that the family of Emmett Till this time around will not be disappointed, that this case will not be pushed up under the rug. But Mississippi, Black America, we have a job to do as well. We have a responsibility to do as well. We talk about Emmett Till. We must give his mother, Mamie Till, all the honor and respect for allowing the ancestors' spirit to come up inside her and give her the courage and the fortitude that it took for her to allow her son that had been tortured and brutalized to the degree that he was unrecognizable. But for her to have that spirit of our ancestors and allow us to see his mutilated body allows us to today understand the need for justice. And so it is our responsibility, Black America, to make sure that we come together as a united front, to be able to organize ourselves collectively upon this one issue of justice for Emmett Till and be able to mobilize our people in Mississippi. That when we say justice or else, what does that mean, justice or else? Well, we're going to briefly talk about what does that mean when we say justice or else. What was the purpose of them and what they did to our brother Emmett Till? We say justice or else because it means that by any means necessary, we will today remove white supremacy within the boundaries or wherever we live today. We must be the ones that demand white supremacy to be removed. We're not going to accept symbolism today. You can't give us a flag that you done took down from your state capital, but white supremacy ideology still permeates within inside the minds of those that sit in that capital. So when we're talking about justice or else, we want to talk about the potential of us as a people from the political and the economic power that we have. Our brother Kwame Ture said these words once. He said, if the white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If he comes to try to lynch me, that's my problem. So I must then exercise all the power at my hands and all the political power that I can muster up to stomp out his ability to be able to lynch me. Black power, black power. And so what we are saying today is that in Black America, we have more Black political officials in this country as a people than we've ever had since Reconstruction. And we have more Black politicians in Mississippi than any state in this country. Secondly, those that are in position, though they are not exercising the true power that they have, many of them are in positions ready to exercise the power. But the power lies in the people. The power lies in us holding our political officials accountable. Now we get down to the meat. Black power, Black love, justice or else. How do we hold them accountable? Well, brothers and sisters, we are embarking upon a major project here in Mississippi. We have been for the last 18 months. I am the program coordinator of what is called the Local Organizing Committee here in the state of Mississippi. The Local Organizing Committee is not an organization, but we represent a conglomerate of organizations, entrepreneurs, religious institutions, individual activists in the community, represent the grassroots activists, where we become a voice between those that have no voice and those that are in political power, local, state, and county. So the LOC represents a voice for the grassroots from a perspective that we are a united front. We have in the LOC the Nation of Islam, the new Black Panther Party, our African People Revolutionary Party, Black Lives Matter. We have local organizations such as NAACP and national organizations, 100 Black Men. We AME churches are with us. Many Black progressive organizations sit at the table of the LOC, collectively organizing and mobilizing our people so that we can exercise our political power. So why do we talk about Mississippi? When we look at the political potential in the states where the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when we talk about separation, he talked about wanting some states in the South. So when we look at Alabama, when we look at Atlanta, Georgia, when we look at Louisiana, when we look at Carolina, when we look at these southern states, when we look at the demographics of each one of them, we find that Mississippi has the smallest population of any of them, 3 million strong. And of that 3 million, we Blacks in Mississippi is close to 1.4 of that. And over 86% of those reside in the Delta. So we have the numbers, but what we don't have is political consciousness. What we don't have is Black consciousness. So we have embarked upon a project that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about when he talked about separation, and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan gave us in 2015 when we went to do the 20th commemoration of the Million Man March in Washington, D.C., calling 10-10-15 justice or else. And he said it was time for us to establish our own political party. So we have been in 2021 traveling throughout the country doing town hall meetings addressing this issue on what does it mean to establish your own party, justice or else party. So we've had town hall meetings in different cities such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenville, Mississippi, and a few Zooms throughout this country dealing with those issues and talking about issues such as what does it look like to talk about establish your own independent party. We talked about reparations. What does separation look like? And from these gatherings, we have put together a mass mobilization campaign that we want to address a little bit today when we talk about justice or else and how we are going to get justice for Emmett Till and many, many other of our brothers and sisters whose lives were taken brutally, tortured by white supremacy hands in this Mississippi in the South. So when we talk about a project that we have embarked on, it's called Freedom Summer 24. And what we are talking about is that we want to go back and review the project of 1964 when Fannie Lou Hamer and others up under the COFO organization came together, different organizations collaborated to shut Mississippi down and run their own candidates. Now we know during that time, we was not politically conscious neither. We know during that time, we had a little what we call Black consciousness because we were still trying to buy in, vote ourselves in to the political arena of white establishment, meaning that 1964 was called the Democratic Freedom Party. We know now, after 58 years, 59 years, or I'm sorry, after 58 years, we know that the Democratic Party looks just like the Republican Party to us. We know that the Democratic Party has an agenda of white supremacy, just like the Republican Party has an agenda of white supremacy. The Republican Party finances the shots and the so-called vaccination that they have put in our arms, and the Democratic Party administers it to our people. So as we said, the Democratic Party looks just like the Republican Party to us. As a matter of fact, in 1964, when we were running for the Democratic Party, it appeared that we, in less than 20 years, had forgot that in 1924, the Democratic Party was the white supremacy party. And within 20 years, they have flipped us. And now we was advocating to be in the part of the same party that was talking about lynching us and torturing us. It was the Democratic Party that was the party that destroyed the Emmett Till life and those like him. So when we coming in here today, when we're talking about organizing and mobilization of our people, we're not talking about a Democratic Party. We're not talking about a Republican Party. We're talking about our own Justice Party, a party with our own interest groups, individuals or organizations with invested interest into our demands, our issues, our interests. And so we will be talking about what we call the Red Book, the National Agenda, a manual that came out of the Million Man March, that was developed once we left the Million Man March. We went into action, organizing and mobilizing our people. And from 1996 into 2005, we took a manual organizing, meeting, conferences throughout the country to formulate a manual that all Black progressive organizations would have a take in it. And so we have what is called the National Agenda that we formulated. And in 2005, when we gathered at the mall, and the Honorable Minister Farrakhan introduced to us the 9 ministries, and he introduced the National Agenda. We from there, within 3 years of using that manual and the plans of the National Agenda, within 3 years from that, we were able to take one of those that were gathered on the mall with us in 1995 and take that person and galvanize them into the White House. You and I know we're talking about our brother, Barack Obama. Now, we did not organize and mobilize to put him in the office for the purpose of believing that we were going to make and get some real change. The purpose of it was to be able to try out our political power. And from now we began to continue to organize, that we were able to get him in office a second time through our mobilization and organizational unity. And so from there, we began to organize and realize that in order for us now to start considering taking these states, we had to begin to look at our state political parties, our state political officials, what position they were in, and how we began to mobilize our people so that we can start talking about taking over states. Because we have to understand, when we're talking about political power, it must come from state rights, from state power. So brothers and sisters, today, we have a task in front of us, and the task is Black love. The task is for us to organize and mobilize ourselves up under Black love. So I know many of us, most of us out there, we are tired of the conditions that we find ourselves in. We are tired of continuing on the same old nothing lifestyle that we've been handed down. But we also got to understand and realize that the tomorrow lies in our hands, is what we decide to do. And so we are embarking upon a project called Freedom Summer 24, where we will be going to Galveston, Texas this October, commemorating the Million Man March, the Holy Day of Atonement. And we will be having a town hall meeting, Justice or Else Party 3, where we will be discussing political agendas, political actions of unity, and how we can begin to talk about organizing to take different states, Mississippi particularly, because Mississippi has been always, from a white supremacy perspective, the catalyst that always led the action of white supremacy. And so it is just a spiritual ancestry power for us to take Mississippi first. And so that is our plans. Freedom Summer 2024. We will be organizing for the last 2 years coming up. We will be talking and dialoguing, discussing on what that's going to look like. We will be coming into Mississippi in 24, setting up freedom schools, and we will be teaching historical organizations in their structure, their rise and fall, so we can study what occurred in some of our organizations and what we can improve on. We will be studying political agendas from a Black perspective, studying the Reconstruction period and what their agenda was. When we look at our brothers in North and South Carolina during the Reconstruction period and the political power that they exercised, that today identifies the school system as we see it. And so when we begin to examine our pioneers and their sojourn here, it will give us a glimpse as to some of the monumental platform that our ancestors left us so that we can improve on it. And with that, we will be able to successfully take over our states, as we know the power that at B is standing there. After 1891, 92, these states began to rewrite their constitutions. And in Michelle Alexander's book, Mass Incarceration, The New Jim Crow, she talks briefly about this situation when she says that white America, after 1891, and began to write their constitution, they wrote it in up under what is called, she terms, preservation through transformation. And what that just simply means is that when they rewrote the constitutions, disenfranchising the Black man, terrorizing the Black man, then today, 167 years later, they are still in control of the governorship in their states, which represent really countries. And so we have to be organized and mobilized so we can begin to unite up under one agenda, one umbrella of Black unity, and be able to come back and give the Emmett Till justice and those like that. Henry Highland Garnett, one of our organizing pioneers of the 19th century, once said, white America does not care about Black people electing one of his own to Congress. What white America don't want is for you and I to elect our people in local and state government. That is the term that we must continue to look at, those pioneers and what they left to us as a blueprint for organization. Black power, Black love.
Wow.
So I want to now see if we have our guest that is eager to come on and take us further into understanding and talking more about the Emmett Till situation. And before I bring them on, something that Priscilla Sterling talks to us about a lot, and that is that Easton and others, which was U.S. state senators at the time, came in during the Roy Bryant and WJW's trial and interfered in the trial by bringing Emmett Till's father, Lewis Till, records from the military, which was irreverent to the trial, and brought it in and showed the courts that based on the government records, Lewis Till had also been guilty of raping a Caucasian woman. However, it allowed us to open up the documents now so we can force the government to review their case, because Lewis Till was lynched and murdered as well because he was falsely accused, as many were in that. So at this time, I want to bring on my strong brother that's going to help us get further in detail with the Emmett Till situation. Black power, black love, Brother Darrell.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm so happy to be here with you. And I just want to talk about some of the prior history so that you can better understand the Emmett Till case in full. Something that we kind of shy away from is the money situation and the corporate the corporate side of that plantation that Emmett was murdered on. It was all about cotton, and cotton is king and was king. Cotton built this country, and the people involved with Emmett covered up their hands in his murder. And I want to talk about heavily Charles Merrill, the founder of Merrill Lynch. He got his start right there where Emmett was murdered, the Wildwood Plantation and Commissary Shop. The murderers of Emmett Till, they're so arrogant, they applied for historical designation in 2013. And they talked about, they were awarded historical designation because of plantation life. And on their application, they cited that we are applying because we want to talk about how corrupt the plantation system was in Greenwood and the Wildwood Plantation. But what they don't tell you, but they were the ones that caused, some of the perpetrators of the hard and the cheating. When you have a tenant farm and you do tenant farming, you cheat, and you cheat your farm hands out of their rightful, dollars. And so I want to talk about some of that also. But I think we have some slides. If we can go to I'd like to show you documents. I want to show you documents of some of the history prior to Emmett's case and what was going on at the Wildwood Plantation and Commissary Shop. And let's see. Yes, this first slide is from Dr. William Ashley Vaughn. And if you could see it, he talks about, please find and close my findings. If you could enlarge that a little bit. This is a researcher, maybe 6.5, 7 years ago, probably a little longer than that. I hired because my daughter asked me who was my mother's mother, and I couldn't tell her. And so I hired a researcher to start looking at my genealogy. And this person told me more about my family than my family did. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and we migrated, up from Greenwood, Mississippi, to the south side of Chicago. And so this is what he says: please find and close my findings report and invoice for my research into Maynard S. McLean and the Carey family. I have made a thorough survey of the Leflore County land tax rolls, and the Leflore County. Can you just go down a little bit? Go back down a little, please. Yeah, the LaFleur County land tax roll shows the southwest 1/4 of section 15, township 20, range 1 east was owned by a R.M. Portwood. On the 1913-1914 LaFleur County tax roll, this same land is owned by a company called Portwood and Williams. In the 1917-1918 LaFleur County land tax roll, the land is owned by an R.A. Portwood. I suspect that this land is the Portwood farm left to Eliza Terrell in Maynard McLean's will. So, if so, McLean must have purchased it between 1918 and 1926 when he died. The 1983 LaFleur County land tax roll is the earliest surviving state tax roll in which Maynard S. McLean appears. By the way, that's my great-grandfather, Maynard S. McLean. And Eliza Terrell, we believe to be my great-aunt. She was married to a Baptist minister in Money, Mississippi, LaFleur County, Greenwood. Cotton, y'all, cotton. So the 1883 LaFleur County land tax roll is the earliest surviving tax roll in which Maynard S. McLean appears. I mentioned that. He owned 4 parcels of land in township 20, range 1 east. One of these was undoubtedly Wildwood. He also owned lot 15 and 16, section 31, township 21, range 1 east, and what would later become Money, Mississippi. So I'm reading that to say that my great-grandfather owned the whole town of Money, Mississippi. In the coming years, he acquired a great deal of property in both the Money and Wildwood areas. M.S. McLean shows up in the 1887 LaFleur County personal tax roll, which gives us a great deal of information about his wealth and the nature of his business. McLean owned 8 cattle, 2 horses, and 32 mules. Okay, so right in here, it just talks about his holdings, okay? I'm not going to read all of that, but he had personal property was valued at $2,929 in the 1900s. And he had a wealth of land that was developed, improved is what they called it. Improved land is where you can, you can live on, and you had maybe some running water, paved streets, that type of thing. So he was, considered very, very wealthy. Okay. And so he expanded his operation. And he, let me go down here to where it says, Maynard McLean owned 98 acres of land in 1902. He owned 397 acres of cultivated land alone, like I was just saying. He also retained lots 15 and 16, section 31, township 21, range 1 east, in the newly incorporated town of Money, Mississippi. Okay, that was in 1902. According to the WPA survey form on the town in the Money, Mississippi, in the Money, Mississippi subject file, Money was founded in 1902 as a shipping center for cotton. Planters like McLean either shipped their cotton and cottonseed by the Yazoo Mississippi Valley Railroad, or until the railroad took over, the steamboat trade by steamboat. Okay, so the railroad came in and they took over the trade, but it was still steamboat transportation of cotton. Okay, and he tells me about the official directory of classified industries, shows that there was still steamboat service up until 1925, but mostly the railroads came through, and they, the railroad that Emmett traveled to Money, and was this, we're talking about the railroad that Emmett came in on, is what we're talking about right here. And so, can you go down some, please? And so there were two railroad stops on the Wildwood Plantation, one in Money, like I said, the one that Emmett was on, and another one. So you really had a what you would call a wealthy operation to have two railroad stops on one plantation of 5,000 acres. Okay, can you go down, sir? To the next line, please.
1 second, brother.
Sure. Yeah, so what I'm doing now is I'm establishing Maynard McLean's, my great grandfather's wealth and what he owned. That's very important because it shows the title of the property. It shows the ownership of the property. Very important in the Emmett Till case. And so this researcher, I asked him, I gave him the name Carey. That's who we were. And my mother knew Old Man McLean. And what she would say about him was he treated his children well. That's what she told us about him. So yeah, just go down some more. Yeah.
Down?
A little bit more.
That's
and I'm
it.
going to start.
That's all the way down, brother.
Is that all the way down? Okay, you can go to the next one. The next slide. Okay. Okay, this talks about Maynard's first wife, Maynard McLean's first wife. If you can widen that a little bit. In this article, like the second column, right there, that's good. Miss Maynard S. McLean of Florida County dies in New Orleans. This is some of my research on my great-grandfather, trying to find out his children, okay? Because my mom, and family told us that, he married the maid, which would be my great-grandmother. So I had to do a deep dive to find out his relationships. And so I found his wife, his first wife, and she was a Sally Boyle. And it talks about, if you widen it just a little bit so that everyone can see, they can read along with me. Just a little bit more. Okay. All right, that's good. Just scroll over just a tad. Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay. Okay, can you go down just a little bit? Up, I'm sorry, up. I'm sorry, up just a little. Okay, right there. Okay, Miss Maynard McLean of LaFleur County dies in New Orleans. The New Orleans papers brings the news of the death of Miss Maynard S. McLean of LaFleur County, Mississippi, which occurred at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in that city. She had been carried to New Orleans for medical treatment, and though she had the best medical skill and the most careful attention, at a complication of trouble set in, which hastened the end. The remains were taken to Lexington, Mississippi for burial. Speaking of this sad incident, the Times Democrat says, Miss McLean has been ill for some time. About 5 weeks ago, her husband determined to bring her to New Orleans, where she could have the advantages of the best medical treatment and all the accommodations that a city can offer. He had a special Pullman car sent to Greenwood, Mississippi, and chartered a steamboat, brought his wife down to Greenwood from his magnificent plantation, some 10 miles above. Okay, can you go up a little? And thence to New Orleans. Miss McLean was before her marriage, Miss Sally Boyle of Lexington, Mississippi, one of the most accomplished and intellectual women of Mississippi, and a member of one of the most prominent and aristocratic families of that state. The death of Miss McLean is peculiarly sad, and under the present circumstances, her husband has just completed for her a magnificent home on his plantation above Greenwood, handsomely furnished, fitted with speaking tubes and all the modern conveniences, and really one of the most beautiful residents in that section of the state. Mr. McLean is a planter and well popular, known all over Mississippi. His plantation is one of the largest and richest on the Yazoo River, producing from 1,000 to 1,500 bales of cotton. Can you go up a little? I mean, down some. Down a little more, please. Okay, yeah, you got to zoom it out a little bit. And what I'm talking about is I'm establishing this man's wealth. So Mr. McLean, a planter, is a planter well and popularly known. Okay, just go down some. We'll get to it. Well and popularly known all over the Mississippi. Okay. His plantation is one of the largest and richest in the Yazoo. Yeah, I covered that. Can you just go up just a little bit more?
That's the bottom of the document, brother.
Is it?
It is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, go up. It's on the other side. I'm sorry. It's on the other side, the rest of it. Huh, no, it's not. Can you enlarge that document?
That's the biggest it goes.
Okay, we can go to the next one. But what I'm establishing here, they
Wait.
talked about her wealth, they talked about his wealth, and the magnificent plantation and what he did to try to save her life. Rented chartered a steamboat and a Pullman train to take her to New Orleans. He had connections there because of shipping, and he had connections with the Greenwood Transportation Authority for steamboat and railroad. 2 railroad stops in Money, Mississippi. Okay, so the next slide. So what I'm getting you guys to understand is that this person was very wealthy. He attracted swindlers. Okay, he attracted all manner of people to work for him and to try to become wealthy themselves. Okay, you can enlarge some of this for me, please.
You're gonna be able to read that.
Okay.
What size the article?
Right here.
Okay.
And just enlarge it. What this document is, okay, that's good right there. Oh, this document is very hard to see, but it establishes Charles Merrill's involvement in the property. It's hard to see. I can't even make it out myself, but this document has Charles Merrill, the founder of Merrill Lynch, as he was living on the Wildwood Plantation with a person by the name of J.B. Wilson. We can go to the next slide. And so what I've done is I've backed the documents that I have. I backed up the timeline with these newspaper articles showing their involvement in the plantation. Go to the next one. So what I'm basically doing is showing you guys Maynard's history, and in his wife's obituary, they mention no children. That's a key point. They mention no children in his wife's obituary. Now, learning all this information, I wanted to pull the corporate documents, and as you can see from the state of Mississippi, this is an official document, and it's talking about the Wildwood Planting Company. And if you just go down it, and it shows it was incorporated in 1912, and Maynard McLean was the president of the company in 1912. He offered up, in the minutes are also associated with this corporate documents. They kept the minutes from 1912 when the Wildwood Planting Company was established, and it was established to do mercantile and cotton planting. Okay. Jonas Levi of New Orleans, he was also an incorporator. He handled the business in New Orleans, the shipping. Once the trains and the steamboats came out of Mississippi down to New Orleans, you had to have a point person to get it shipped from there. And so Maynard's operation, he would travel back and forth from New Orleans to Mississippi, Greenwood. And so this established that he owned or was the president, according to the minutes, which I do have a copy of that came with this document, the president, and he offered $1 million in corporate money, $1 million in money to establish this corporation. So just scroll down. And so that was 1912. Scroll down.
That's the bottom of the document, brother.
Oh man, it should be another part of this document. It should be another part of this document.
We look for it.
I wonder if I can pull a document up.
You can.
Okay. Let me try to find that document. That's very important. One second, guys. I tell you what we'll do is let's go to some of the audio recordings. Okay. The first audio recording, can you cue that up and I'll look for the document?
The call?
Yes, the call. I have a call from Mr. Hill. This is very, very important, guys. I'm doing my genealogy research, and Mr. Hill was a person that they told me knew a lot about the history. Okay. Now, that first document that I was showing you, my researcher told me about my family members, but somehow it was cut off. He told me about my, what they owned and how many horses that some of the Black family members had. Excuse me. So, but if you cue up that audio,
is it the conversation with the lady, or is it the other audio?
It's the other audio.
Okay.
The first one I sent you.
So you and
that one?
No, not that one yet. We come to that one.
We only have two here.
Okay, you should have one I sent you. Let me see.
Yeah, you sent me two.
Hold on a second. Okay, well, play don't play that. Let's see, should he play the lady first? Play the lady.
Yeah.
Well, I've got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
What do you?
I've got about 10 minutes too, and I need to run an errand. I've been looking for my great grandmother and my aunt. In Chicago, they lived, as a matter of fact, on the Wildwood Plantation way back, in the 1900s. And my daughter asked me who was my great grandmother, or my mother's grandmother, and I couldn't give her the answer. So I asked my mother, "Who was your grandmother?" And I'm like, "Mom, you could tell me who your grandmother is." She didn't know, and so that led me on a search for my great grandmother. And the Wildwood area is the area that led me to where my grandfather lived, and and so on and so forth. And I guess that's why I'm calling you guys.
Yes.
I kind of like wanted to know what happened to her, and I've done a lot of digging about that situation, and then I found the historical narrative that explained some of the history of Wildwood.
Yes.
I was just intrigued by it, and that's what led me to you.
Yes.
And I learned some of the history about Maynard McLean.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you had any history on him and his life.
I have, all I have is the factual information. That he was the man. He worked on the on Wildwood Plantation. I think he was a manager. I'm totally going off the top of my head here. But was he not a manager on the plantation?
No, he was the owner.
Okay. Maynard McLean. Okay.
The manager, I think, was J.B. Wilson.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But I don't remember Maynard McLean being the owner. Charles Merrill was the owner.
Right.
Before my grandfather was.
Right. Before Charles Merrill.
Before Charles Merrill, it was Maynard McLean, huh?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
And Wilson.
I haven't read about. I've got this stuff written down that my father wrote down, but it's of course I have no memory of any of this. It's all just been told to me.
Right. It's such a rich history. And,
yes.
And,
yes.
J.B.
Yes.
Wilson was Merrill's uncle, and he was one of the managers.
Yes.
Right. So.
Yes, he managed it, and that's who my grandfather took over from, was Wilson. I mean, Charles Merrill hired my grandfather to take over, because supposedly there was some shenanigans going on there, which I've never understood exactly what was going on. But apparently Mr. Merrill wanted someone that he could trust.
Right.
But I've never heard anything bad about Mr. Wilson. I have no idea what all that story was, and I don't think my dad knew.
Right. And I think that I think Mr. Wilson wound up being a funeral director at one point.
Oh, did he?
Oh, you might not remember that. I think that.
Yeah, I didn't. Once my grandfather took over, I don't know. I don't know who knew what happened to Mr. Wilson. But he was related to Charles Merrill in some way.
Right. Right.
But we don't really. There was the story in genealogy. There's always a fire somewhere back there where everything burned, and the commissary for the plantation burned in maybe 1942 or 4 or somewhere in there. The commissary burned, and we lost all the records.
Oh, wow.
And so we have hand-me-down information and word-of-mouth stories, but we don't have any records of the people that work there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what would really probably, help me out.
That's right. That's right. That's what I was thinking.
Too. Mm-hmm.
So, somewhere
in there. Stories or anything that you could tell me real quick before you have to go? I would love to hear them.
I don't. I was born in 1943, and I grew up there. My father was in the Navy and was going to make a career at the Navy, but then realized he was going to have to raise his children on the road, and they would have no home. So I didn't find this out until I was grown, that Daddy came back to work for his father because he didn't want us to be what we used to call Navy brats. and so, but I grew up there, and, it was, I grew up around a lot of really good people.
Sounds like it.
And but anyway, I don't really have much. I don't know that we have anything. My grandfather started working there in 1932. And then, of course, the commissary fire, we lost all of that. But I will see if there's anything before that I can add to it. But I don't know that it is your last name Gibson?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is that your family's name?
No.
I mean, your great-grandmother's name?
No, we believe her name might have been Austin.
Okay.
And and
her last name.
Right, her last name might have been Austin or Terrell.
Okay.
So those are the only two names that we think.
Yeah. Well, I'll look and see what I have. What is your? I'm real old fashioned. I'm thinking about copying something and mailing it to you because I don't really know how to do things on the internet. I mean, I kind of halfway know how.
That's okay. Trust me, it's good not to know how to do anything on the internet. If I have any
family stuff up there, all my stuff's upstairs. That's why I say up there. Then I could mail something to you if you would like for me to. I don't know that it's going to have much to do with my family. I guess when your is it your great-grandmother?
Yes.
Well, they lived in Charleston, Mississippi, which is north of Greenwood, north of Wildwood, about an hour north, I guess. So that's where we lived. So would you like for me to take your address?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And, the thought is, I'm thinking maybe a book, maybe, because I'm just totally fascinated by the story and the narrative, according to the historical narrative on where my grandfather and Mr. McLean, my great-grandmother, lived, and the stories that my mother and my aunt they tell me. Now, I'm 55 years old, and
you are?
Yeah, and my aunt is 92, and just some of the memories that they have. It's fascinating. And then the Charles Merrill part of it, and you know how he connected up.
Yes. Well, I can copy something that my dad had that I think he sat down and just went from memory and typed it.
Sure.
But if you just strictly want to know about Wildwood,
Sure.
I could send that to you. So
Okay.
I need to run on and get my
Sure.
granddaughter.
Oh, no
Can
doubt.
you go ahead and give me your address?
Yeah, it's 11809 Dudley Court.
Dudley?
Yes, ma'am. Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Okay. So, all right. So there you go. That was an interview 4 years ago that we did to try and find out about my great grandmother, and you know, that it was a lot of good information, confirmation information. Well, not a lot of confirmation information, but 1932, very important date. That's when they took over occupancy of the Wildwood plantation. And so Charles Merrill was still owner of the Wildwood plantation at that time, 1932. The court case, if you want to pull that up, or whatever is the next slide, maybe I can talk a little bit about that conversation, let you guys know where I'm going with that conversation. She said she confirmed J.B. Wilson and Charles Merrill as, you know, owners of the property, or kinfolk. J.B. Wilson was Charles Merrill's uncle. Okay. And the papers that she sent me that she's talking about are the same papers that I've already had, according to the historical narrative. When you apply for a historical narrative, you have to send in factual information, well, somewhat factual information, in order to get that designation. And so what she sent me was a copy of what they anyone can get from the internet. You can just, you know, Google Wildwood Plantation and Commissary Shop, click on the link, and you can see the write-up. And you can do that. You can Google that right now, and you can coincide. You can read along. You can read the narrative, and you can, you know, remember what she talked about as far as how the chain of title went, according to her. Okay. And then she also mentioned something key: shenanigans. Of course, she wasn't gonna, you know, you can remember certain things, but you can't remember what the shenanigans was. And we all know that that's the thing that most people remember. And so that's why I wanted to play the other audio of Mr. Hill, who also talks about the same property that she's talking about, but from a Black perspective. And it's really profound to hear this man talk about what happened, because he remembered a lot about what happened back then. He even told me about my people, and I never met the guy. So can we pull up the next slide, please? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can we pull up the next slide? And then one other important piece of information.
Which one?
That was 4 years ago.
I'm pulling them up as you sent them to me.
Okay, that's fine. You can do that. Another thing, very important thing about that interview is she is related. I found out later that she's related to Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam. They were cousins, or they were her uncle. Milam might have been her, you know, half uncle, and J.W. Bryant half uncles. She was living on the plantation when Emmett was murdered. But she, you know, I did not know until I found newspaper articles of the relationship between the Garys and the Bryants. As a matter of fact, her father was L.W. Bryant's sister. And L.W. Bryant is Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam's mother. Okay? She was living at the time of Emmett's murder. Get her? And that's 1955. Charles Merrill was still the owner of the plantation and the land in 1955. No one in the world, especially Black people, know that. And so you start to kind of see a picture of the shenanigans in 1932 when they came aboard, the Gary family. Okay, but they came aboard. And the Gary family, her family was put in by J.B. Wilson, the plantation manager. They put her father in as the new plantation manager, because I know why, because J.B. Wilson, Charles Merrill's uncle, was getting old. He had to be in his 80s. And so that's why I wanted to show the corporate documents too. That was very important. I don't know how I got cut off, but the corporate documents shows J.B. Wilson and Charles Merrill's name in those corporate documents. So if we can come up with the next slide.
Which slide you want, brother? Because we're at the end. I mean, there's no more.
There's no more? Oh, wow.
Okay. Sister sent me something too. Sister, one of your associates sent me something also.
Okay, well, we can oh, can you pop up the birth certificates? And I'm going to try and find another audio.
Okay.
I think it's this. Hold on a sec. Let me see. Okay. I think this is another audio recording.
You can play it if you like.
Yep, there it is. This is the right one, guys. This is the audio that when I first met Mr. Hill, never met him face to face, but you know, I'm on my search for my genealogy.
Yo, we can't hear it.
Okay, I'll turn up the volume.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Can I speak with Willie Hill?
Okay.
Hello? Hello, Willie Hill? Yes, sir. How you doing? My name is Daryl Gibson, and I received your phone number from Donna Gary over in Money, Mississippi. She suggested that I give you a call because you're a resident expert on a lot of the history down in Money in LaFleur County. Yes, sir. Oh, awesome. Now, I'm trying to find my, I believe it would be my great-grandmother, and I believe that she lived right in the Money Wildwood Plantation area. Are you familiar with that area? Yes, I am. Okay, now, I think this goes back quite a ways. I think we do. Yes, sir, it does. And as a matter of fact, we tracked down my great-grandmother, and we believe she passed away between 1897 and 1926. And we got her last name we think her last name was either Coyle, Austin, or Terrell. Are you familiar with any of them? Yeah. Well, yeah, you're going back a little too far. That's back further than my time. What, Austin? Well, do you know? I'm listening. But I go by the number you gave me, 18. I can go from about 19. I can bring you from about 1940 on up. Okay, 1940. Okay, that's way past it. Okay, but you live there now, though, right? You live in the money? Yes, sir. I do. Okay. Now, is there a Portwood church in that area? Portwood Farms? Yeah. There used to be. It's gone now, but it used to be. Right, that's what we found out, that it's gone. When did it close? That was the black church, right? Yeah, right. Right down the road from me, not about 2.5 miles. 2.5 miles from you, okay. And that's near, it's closer to the Wildwood Plantation, right? Oh, yeah, Right, okay. And not the Wildwood Plantation, but it's close to it. Okay, now it was an east and a west Wildwood, right? Was it what? Wildwood is pretty big, correct? Right. Okay, so that Portwood, was it a farm in Portwood also, or? A farm? Yeah, was it a farm or just a church? Well, now it was right at a farm, yeah. Who owns that church now? Who owns that? Well, the church is gone. Stone blew the church down years ago. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you know who owned that area, that land? Well, I don't know the man's name that owned it, because it's been owned by some new folks here in the late years. It's been sold and bought again, yeah. Yeah, black's right. No, not black. He's white, got it now. Oh, it's a white guy now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, do you know any Terrells? No, I can't remember no Terrell. Okay. Now, let's see. Austin's, now, the McLean's family is also a name. There's McLean Street there now, isn't it? McLean Street. Is there a street called McLean there? No, not around Money. Not a McLean. Money's a little bitty place. It used to be 5 stores up there. Then one while it got to be 6 stores, and they didn't last long. Well, it went back to 5, and then from 5 come on down to 3, and after the Emmett case, it went all the way out to one store, and them folks died about 7 or 8 years ago. So there's no stores up there now. Doesn't go to church. Now the plantations, they still have the structure for where the plantation was, and the plantation is still here. Right. I'm just talking about the money in the store. This little town, Money was a little town. Now the residence houses on the plantation, can people visit those, or are those still occupied by people, or on the plantation? You know, like where I know they still harvest cotton there, but can you still live on the plantation and harvest the cotton, or has that changed? Oh no, you don't. No, machines do all that with picking and cotton, working, getting it ready and everything. Everything to the machine. They do it by machine. Okay. Now, as far as the blacks in the area, that might be clues to where we can find our great grandmother. And we believe the name could be Austin Terrell or Boyle. And yeah, you're not familiar with any Boyles. No Boyle. Okay. And Terrell either. And Austin either. Austin? Yeah. Well, there's some Austins here. Was here. Was there? Okay. They were there close. Were they close to you? Yeah, they weren't far from me. They lived close to you. Do you know where they live? Because I believe that might be the area we need to look. Wherever the Austins were. The man ain't been long died. The man just died this year. Austin. But now his wife and children are still here. Oh, really? Yeah, but see, now this man was about 74, 75 years old. And she just died. And I wonder how long they lived there. All his life. Okay, that might be something we need to research because that might be a connection. Because my great grandmother's name was Austin, then that might be her relatives. It could be her relatives. Let me think what this second to sure. What did I tell you supposed to do with name? Yeah. No, that's the last name. Somebody's first name. It was one off the boy I'm telling you just died. I knew his daddy too, but he'd been dead a long time ago. But he was an officer. But I can't think his first name. I forgot that. We call him Buzzabuzz. Who? He had a nickname, Buzzabuzz. I can't think his yeah, that was his nickname. Everybody around here called him Buzzabuzz. But on the plantation? Yeah, he worked on a plantation. Okay, he worked on a plantation. Now, Sunday Buzz. Wow, that's a name for you. Yeah, it is. But his last name was Austin. Did you know any Carries? Carries? Yeah. Say that again. Carries. Did you know any Carries? I'm having a hard time understanding what you really saying. See, there's Carries, not Jerry, but Carries. Oh, Jerry on the name. Carries. Yeah. Carry, like a berry. Right, you're right. Carry is a C. Okay. No, I don't remember no cherry. Okay. What about bishops? Bishop. Well, ministers. There were ministers back then. Huh? Ministers. Bishops. He was a minister. Yeah, way back though. So he probably had to have a church. His last name was Bishop. Henry Bishop. No, I didn't know no Henry Bishop. Okay. Now, as far as black, I know there are McLeans that live in that area. And are there any black McLeans that you know of? They was in Greenwood, 10 miles down the road from me. The black McLean. Yeah, I remember Guy McLean. Guy McLean? Guy, right. Okay. Half white, but he said. He was a half white. Okay. And he had two sisters. And what were their names? Let me see. Just about I forgot them women's name. They were real pretty heavy women. Good. And they used to be here on Wildwood, they tell me, before I was born. They were here on Wildwood. Oh, really? Yeah, so they passed away. Yeah. They passed away. Okay. So they might have been related to somebody in that area that owns stuff that were white. Oh, yeah, they were. But that was before my time. But I had older people telling me about it, and I spoke talk about them, and then them children, like he had two sisters. They lived in Greenwood, and they were living there when I grew up. They died when I was grown when they died. Yeah. And so it was G. McLean that lived in Greenwood over near Wildwood. He lived on Wildwood. I'm sorry, they lived on Wildwood, and his sisters lived on Wildwood. Yeah, McLean, and they were McLeans. Okay. Yeah, it was a white man owned Wildwood at that time. That was his name. That was his name, McLean. Maynard McLean. Oh, Maynard McLean. Okay. Yeah, he owned the Wildwood. The rich one. Yeah, he was the rich one. Yeah, he had a colored woman for his wife. His wife's color? Yeah. But they said he started off with the housekeeper. But she found out with 3 children, but yeah, 3 children. And that was E. And the 2 sisters. Because they were white. That's white. Yeah. And you don't know her name, huh? No, I can't think of her name. But they ain't been all that long died. If it was McLean, that's the stories you heard. Yeah. That how could he marry a white? How could he marry a black woman in those times? Well, I don't think he had a lot of money. Well, back then, I mean, if you was rich, a millionaire or something, you do just about what you wanted to. Because the story has it that he owns almost all the town anyway. Well, yeah, you're right. According to what I've researched, that money was really booming back then. Oh, to the boll weevil. Yeah. One year, I think the boll weevil ate the cotton, but still, there was a lot of money to be made of the cotton farming back then. Oh yeah. Man, when I was a kid coming on, you don't see no cotton now. When I was a kid coming on, you could see some cotton. Out there. 2 and 300 bowls on one stalk. What? Get out of here! Oh, because the Tallahatchie is there. That water there there's still good soil there. Still good. There's still good stuff there. They about to kill it out now with that old chemical they put on that, killing the bugs and stuff. Yeah, I got to pour all kinds of fertilizer to it now. So, do the McLeans still own that property at Wildwood? Or I think it's the Garys live there now. They don't want to who told me. Your number gave me your number. Yeah. The Garys own it now. And they're probably descendants or some kind of relative to the McLeans. They're from Andrews. It's been sold a couple of times since before the Garys got it.
and then behind him, Charlie Miller. Got a white fella they call Charlie Miller. He owned it before the Gearys got it. And the Gearys bought it from a guy called Charlie Miller. But he never just lived here. He owned it, but you know, somebody else always feed after fun. Yeah. But all them things been dead. Yeah. Now the Garys, they were. Do you think that the McLean's, what was his name? He sold the land. Did he ever own it or? No, he didn't have it. He was the man's son. Right. Seemed like but he never did own it. He never did own it. He just was the son. That's all. Oh, so it wasn't handed down to him. No, he's black. Black. Yeah. Because it was still kind of bad then, you know, the white folks. No, it wasn't kind of bad. It was rough back then. When I was a kid, it was pretty rough. And this happened way before my time. Gotcha, sir. All right. Yeah, that's good. That's good to know all that history, sir. And wow, you really invited me on a lot of things here. And now the plantation from the records that we know is like 5,000 acres. Well, it's large, but I don't really know how many acres. How big it is. Yeah. But it is large. Yeah, it's large. Is it the largest in that area, Greenwood, or? No, it's several. There's several of them around here. Large plantations. Around Greenwood, there's several of them. It's real large. Well, Mr. Willie, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Well, you bother me. Oh, you thank you so much, sir. You've been very nice. And my sister is on the line. She's listening because I'm the one that really stuck at the research, so she's a lot smarter than I am. If she has any questions, she can ask you now. Tammy, do you have any questions you'd like to ask the man? They might have clicked off. Tammy? Hello? It drops. So, if you can call me anytime. Don't make no difference. All right. And did you? Oh, this is the last question. Francis, did you know a Francis McLean or McLean? And one of them sisters could have been a Francis. I don't know. I just don't.
Yep, that's it.
I didn't know either one of them name, but I knew them though.
Thank you.
I think we'll be down that way shortly. So bless you, and you and your family have a wonderful rest of your evening. If I don't call you again this evening, okay? All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Real quickly on this interview, that is, can everyone hear me? Hello? Can everyone hear me? This interview was Mr. Hill. Okay. I found him from the Garys as a person that knew the history. They didn't know what I was looking for, but this man told me about my family. Guy, that's my family. And Francis, that's my family. He told me about. I never met the guy before. We just had a conversation. He told me about my great grandmother and how it went down after my great grandfather died, Maynard McLean. So Mr. Hill still lives and is still alive today. And guess where he lives? He lives next to Bryant's grocery store. And he used to work for Roy Bryant. So let's play the other audio and we can hear Mr. Hill and Priscilla Sterling talk about the Till case. Cue that up for us. Hello?
And when I started, just was calling and just talking to because he was feeling kind of shifty. What's in the church? I got the feeling standing on the line with you. Oh, yeah. Priscilla. Yeah. Well, Priscilla, you there?
Hey, Mr. Hill. Huh?
Hey, stay in the room.
Mr. Hill?
Priscilla Hill.
Priscilla Sterling. How you doing today?
I'm doing better now. I feel worse than it ain't been real bad.
Oh. Well, I'm one of Emmett Till's relatives.
Emmett Till?
Yes, sir.
Where you at?
Well, we were originally from Hazelhurst. That's where his mama was from.
Hazelhurst?
Yes, sir. Sir?
That name of the church, Hazelhurst?
Yes, sir. Mount Zion. And
Mount Zion.
Yes, sir.
What's your town? What y'all town? Closest town?
Our closest town is, you may know, Brookhaven or Wesson.
Oh, yeah.
Down that way, down 55.
I remember Brookhaven. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember?
Brookhaven, yeah.
Yeah, it's closer to that side of this town, state line, I guess.
Like Greenwood?
Well, it's nowhere near Greenwood. Where are you?
I'm in Money, Mississippi.
Oh, you in Money, so you know all about the history of what happened down there, huh?
I know a little about it. You know, we want people talk a lot.
They do.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be true, but it'll be something about it.
So you been down there all your life?
Yeah.
Wow. So you know Emmett, huh?
Come on, let's go ahead. Just for that.
You know Emmett would have been 79 years old.
79.
Yes, sir.
Emmett Till?
He'll be 79 now.
Wait a minute, huh? Emmett Till. I didn't say Emmett Till. What was it? Emmett Till? I'm talking about the young man. He wasn't that old when he died.
No, he was 14. Remember when he died?
Yeah.
When they pulled him out and kidnapped him. Don't you remember the case with Roy Bryant and J.W. Miller?
I remember. Yeah, I remember when Robin where I live, where I'm living now.
So do you remember the story?
Well, I remember I ain't growing now. I'm decreasing. I forget the next thing most. Yeah, but I used to know all about all this stuff. But I live in Money. That's Money, Mississippi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Did you know Carolyn Bryant? And did you remember the Bryant store?
Bryant, yeah, I remember that. But I forgot a lot of it too. What folk were saying. I remember, yeah.
Yeah. Our family really wanted to know what really happened, but you know, like you said, there's so many parts of the story.
Yeah, all these stories, right? I guess stuff now, back then, I ain't never really.
Like what?
just talking, but I know you will not. Some things like you learn one way and get another way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you what?
Man, know what you're talking about. You remember. That's the show.
Yeah, do you remember the night they took Emmett and who all they said took him?
Emmett did.
Yeah.
Right. That was in was for money, wasn't it?
It was at Uncle Moses' house, Moses' right house.
Oh, right.
It was down there in money.
I know it. That's what I said. Money, yeah. Well, all of my friends, Moses, right? All the little boys. When we were friends, we were good friends. We were all with the same school together. Everything.
Really?
Yeah, I went to school. I went to school. I was older than they were, but the right boys, but some of the right boys were just like me.
Yeah, you should be because that's right. How old are you?
65, 66, something like that.
I'm talking about how old are you?
That's what I'm talking about, me.
You ain't no 65.
How come I ain't? You feel like it, but yeah.
You 65?
Yeah, right, so I'm all 64, right?
So you were born after them then.
After them, no.
Yeah, I mean you were born like Emmett came down in Mississippi in 55. And see, it's been 65 years he been dead. So you just not too long that came into the world.
Long time to me.
Yeah, that's a long time.
I might be a little bit older. I ain't counting you right, but I'm older than you. I knew them, all of them, but I'm older than you.
You older than who now?
Right boy. Yeah.
You can't be older than the right boy because let me tell you why now. If Emmett came down at 55 and you just 65, that means that you had just been born when Emmett had come to Mississippi. You see what I'm saying? Because the Wright boys, all of them were right around the same age. Like Simeon Wright was 13, Emmett was 14, and the other boys he had come with Willa and his cousin, they were a little bit older. Scotty, go in the house.
All right, tell me what their name was.
Who?
The other boy you talking about a little bit older.
Yeah, Curtis and I got them all written down in my paper. I can't remember their names right off, and I don't want to give you the wrong information. Willa, all of them were older. See, all of them were older. And see, right after the trial, Uncle Moses left with his kids, and they moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, they left.
Yeah,
So.
I tell you what, we were friends. We went the same.
Now, see, that might be some of his folks that was still there, but Uncle Moses and his
everybody left here just about the same time, but there wasn't no out family. They both still family.
Yeah, it might have been. It might have been, but see, I'm just based on your age. You heard about it.
Yeah, well, I knew the boys. I knew all of them. Let me ask you something. Ron Fine and Hiram, they used to run the town of money, right? Well, no. They wasn't run. I don't know what what you call that? They run the town or not? I don't know, but they just having, the wrong thing just popped up there some kind of way. I went out. I wasn't a rough guy. I went out and everything, but I live right here, just a few steps from stores that they went in. Roy Fine store. I used to work for Roy Fine. I sure did. All grocery store. I did. He run the grocery store.
So what did you hear? So you was with him after everything had happened. What did you hear? What did he ever say about the case?
Nothing. He said nothing.
But what did you ever hear? What did you know that you just felt like, well, none of my business, but yeah, you all knew?
Well, we knew a lot of that stuff when we were hearing what to do with, and a lot of it was true. But you really didn't know nothing because they were kind of secret like things. They got him. I don't know if they didn't even know it, and I don't know if he didn't know it. They were looking for him. They were looking for him already. But I don't think he knew it till night. When he was sure they were looking for him, he had got dark. And they found him at the house. Somebody came to his house where he was staying, to the Mo's house.
Right.
So, did you know Roy Bryant's mother? L.W. Bryant? No, I didn't know. I didn't know who them boys were. I drove school bus too when school was going on. And I used to carry them home sometimes. But it wasn't my really route, something happened to another bus or something. And I had to take some of them home myself. So, that's the way it was. I know some of them pretty good, and some of them, I just seen them, that's all. I didn't just know them, I just seen them. But I know the old man, I know him,
What old man?
The man house he was at, he got him from. I'm trying to think of his name.
Uncle Moses.
Yeah, no, whole right.
When your birthday, Mr. Hill?
My friend.
When your birthday?
I don't know about that, huh? I'm 6 years old, man. Won't be lying to you. I'm 6 years old.
I know. When do you remember the year you were born?
I remember the year I was born?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I was born in 34.
You were born in 34?
Yeah.
You were born in 34?
34.
You sure you know it? Then you way older than 65.
Yeah, I'm older than 65.
Of course. See, if you were born in 34, you're right. You are older.
Born in 1934.
Because see, Simeon Wright was born in 41. So if you were born and Emmett was born, go now. Okay, so my thing is,
I think Emmett was older than me. I think Emmett was a couple years older than me. One year was the other boy.
you are older than Emmett.
Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that wasn't the end of the tape.
No.
Did it cut off? That
No.
wasn't the end.
I paused it. It's a half hour long. There's 15 minutes left.
Okay, it was 15 minutes left in the tape.
Yeah.
Right. So on that tape recording, that's the same Mr. Hill that told me about my family and the history. And he also used to work for Roy Bryant. You heard him say it out of his own mouth, and he's still living. And he, if you'd have played the tape further, he'd have told you about Roy Bryant's truck. And I think he would have told you more about the Bryant's brothers used to always be there playing checkers. He knew where Mose Wright lived. You heard him say that. He used to drive the school bus. He used to make deliveries. He said he used to work for Roy Bryant. He lives a couple of steps away from Bryant's grocery store. Okay. And so we're asking the FBI, did you guys interview him? Did you ask him the questions? He admitted that you hear a lot of stories, a lot of secrets. Okay, so he was tight with the Gary family. Okay, nice man, nothing wrong with him. It's just that we believe he knows more than what is out there. How can he not? Think about it. He lives the closest to anyone in the world to the Bryant's grocery store. He used to work for Roy Bryant. And you guys heard him say they was looking for him that night. He explained that in detail. He explained that in some we're not professional investigators, but if you heard what he said, he explained that in some detail. And so what we are establishing here, okay, they just found the warrant. This man knows more about this case, and they won't reveal it to us. You know what? The other thing is he is the only person alive that can place Carolyn Bryant at the scene, other than the police in the arrest warrant. They place her at the scene. He corroborates what's on the report. Who knows? Maybe he testified. Maybe they interviewed him. We don't know. So that's the question. Why hadn't the FBI, my good friend Mr. Hill, why wouldn't they give him immunity? Why wouldn't they give him immunity from prosecution to tell everything he knows? And then he could still be afraid. And I think you heard some fear in the conversation Priscilla was having with him about the Emmett Till case. He knew the Wright boys. He worked for them. This is something that you guys haven't read about from the historians. This is not well known. This is what we dug up in this case. And so he has an impeccable memory because he told me about my family. And so we don't know what relationship, and I'm pretty sure it was a close relationship with the Gary family. And so we can go to the next slide. Maybe I can run through something else.
There's no more slides, brother.
Oh, that's no more slides, right? I'm sorry about
that. If you didn't send them all or something, but that's it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or anything of what they seen? I hope I was able to enlighten. I apologize for not having more slides to kind of paint a better picture. And so you heard from Miss Gary, who was maybe about 8-9 years old when Emmett was murdered on the plantation of Wildwood. That's the other thing. He was thrown out the Tallahatchie River. But now you guys, you kind of understand a little about the corporate side of this case. You understand a little about the corporate side. Charles Merrill was the owner of that plantation, and he partitioned the property to the Bryants. Okay, so Charles Merrill was on Wall Street. J.B. Wilson was too old to basically run the plantation, but Charles Merrill, according to, I have the title of the property, Charles Merrill partitioned the deed to the Garys and some other business entity, that plantation. So Hardy Lotz, Trent Lotz family member, married into the Gary family. So Hardy Lott was the prominent lawyer then, and he was the president of the Greenwood Associations of the White Citizens Council, just an arm of the Ku Klux Klan. And so how did the Bryants, see, this is the other question, how did the Bryants grocery store come into existence? The corporate documents shows that Hardy Lott and one of the Miss Gary, the lady that you heard, one of her cousins married into Hardy Lott's family. Okay, they married a Warner Wells. Warner Wells was an insurance broker in Greenwood, and he was Hardy Lott's cousin. And so that's how you get the Hardy Lott's connection to the Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam. Hardy Lott advised before trial, and petitioned the jury before the Emmett trial, because they were members of the White Citizens Council. And that's why we claim that it's a Ku Klux Klan murder, because of Hardy Lott and James O. Eastland, Stennis, and these folks are connected to Hardy Lott, Trent Lott, Charles Merrill, and the shenanigans that you heard the lady say. You know, there was some shenanigans. And then you heard Mr. Hill talk about the blacks weren't getting the property, you know, because they were black. And so I got all kind of corporate documents that shows how Charles Merrill obtained the corporate. See, there's a corporate side of the Wildwood plantation. There's a sharecropping side, and then there's a corporation side, and there's an insurance side. Okay, before Mamie didn't, she, you know, you have to understand, she didn't pursue her civil suit. We have documents that show that she was pursuing a civil suit after they were acquitted, or they found them not guilty of murder. So she was pursuing the rightful next step, civil suit against the estate. They had already admitted in Look magazine that they kidnapped him. And then the warrant says that they kidnapped him, and Carolyn Bryant kidnapped Emmett. We believe the person you just heard, Will Hill, can corroborate Carolyn Bryant's role. And they won't bring the charges. I mean, what more do you need? You have the warrant and you got Mr. Hill. What more do you need? And so all of these entities come into play in this case. Hardy Lott and the Garys and the Bryants are related. Mamie Till was pursuing a civil suit. Medgar Evers was assassinated. Guess and who was helping Mamie Till with the civil suit from the NAACP? Medgar Evers. And who killed him? Byron D. LeBeckwith, related to the Bryants. related to the Bryants, related to the Garys, Deela Beckwith. They're related. Klansmen. And when Medgar Evers was gunned down like a dog, they took responsibility. White Citizens Council and the Klan. And who was Deela Beckwith's lawyer? Hardy Lott. Hardy Lott. When I asked Miss Gary about Wilson's funeral home, I asked her that for a reason, because Hardy Lott's daughter was buried there. Most of the Klansmen and the white power structure in Greenwood patronized that funeral home. J.B. Wilson's, it's called, you can Google it, Knight and Wilson's funeral home. And I don't understand how Miss Gary didn't know anything about the funeral home. Her family is probably buried, it was probably funeralized there, you know. But I know the Lotts, the Cochran, what is it? All what is it? Newt Gingrich and all these people have association with the Knight's funeral home. So it's a lot left to investigate, and the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking on bringing charges against Carolyn Bryant, and we feel that it's a strong elements of the KKK involved, and the White Citizens Council involved in the lynching and the cover-up of Emmett Lewis Till. And then, not to mention Lewis Till, not to mention his lynching in 1945. And that's where James O. Eastland comes in to protect. You wonder why the Senator James O. Eastland and Senator Stennis and J. Edgar Hoover would be involved so scandalously in this case. You always have to follow the money. You always have to look at the corporate interests. And we believe that James O. Eastland, in his papers and in his documents, some of them, you know, you can't even see. But I think another part of the story is in James O. Eastland's and Stennis's documents. How much money was Charles Merrill contributing to O. Eastland? Those are some of the questions and some of the answers that we need from his documents. And so I'm not going to hold you. I have a ton of documents, a ton of newspaper articles. I have a will. I have a court case that I thought we were going to be able to bring up, but maybe next time I can succinctly bring that information to you guys. But it's a lot out here. And it's a lot that people just don't know about the Gary family, the Bryant's family, and where they came from. They came from Helena, Arkansas, into the wealth of the Wildwood Plantation in Money, Mississippi, and so that's how they came over to Mississippi from Helena, Arkansas, because of the theft of my family's property. You heard Mr. Hill talk about the Wildwood Plantation and Maynard McLean. Maynard McLean was my great-grandfather. And I have birth certificates and I have death certificates of my grandfather and his sister. The women that he talks about. Guy McLean is his name, but they went by Carrie. They couldn't they couldn't use the McLean name when they had to leave town after McLean died. They couldn't use his name. And so that's where the name Carrie came in at. And so that's going to wrap it for me. I don't think there's anything else. If there's any questions or anything, you know, I know it's a tough thing to follow, this history. It takes lots of time to understand corporate structure of the Wildwood Plantation, but you can Google the Wildwood Plantation and Commissary Shop and read the historical narrative. Don't believe it. It's what the enemy put in to get, I guess, tax breaks in 2013 for the 5,000 acres of the property. You know, why would they see? That's just how arrogant certain people are, because they don't think that we would ever find out the history and how things went down. But you have to understand, Bunny, Mississippi, and in that area is the richest, still today, the richest cotton soil there is, period. And Roy Bryant and J.W. Milan, they came in to the good life. They stole themselves into the good life, and then they lynched people and murdered people to sustain it. That's what happened. And you know, Carolyn Bryant knows this history because her husband, because she had to wonder, how did someone like you come to operate a store all over the deltas. So with the stolen property, they set up the Bryant's store. They set up other commissary shops all over the delta, and that's where they recruited Klansmen. That's where they recruited citizen council members. You know, and the Bryants and Milams were a big part of that, and the Carolyn Bryant was a big part of that. She was a big part of that too. And so what we asked the FBI was Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam members of the White Citizens Council? You know, they have to know the answer to that. They know the answer to that because we know they investigated. Prior to Emmett's death, they were investigating the Klan in Mississippi. They were investigating them. So they created Citizens Council. That came after, you know, the Citizen Council formed after Brown v. Board of Education. Brown v. Board of Education. Yeah. So, is there any questions?
I don't see any, brother. I'm looking in the chat room and I don't see any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to me, and you know, I hope we were able to bring with the audio. Just think about some of the things that Mr. Hill said about the case. Think about that, and some of the things that Miss Gary said, and you know, I can make some documents available to help you guys out if you want. I can do that. Let me see if so how long do I have here? I can probably.
You got some time.
Oh, good. Okay. I got some time. Okay, I can pull up my own documents. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe this is it. Here you go. Can everyone see this document?
No. You have to click on share screen.
Okay, let me do that. Sorry. check.
After you click on share screen, just point to what you want to share.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Everyone see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is kind of a little bit before the corporate documents that I was trying to show you earlier. It had as the new owner of the or new incorporator of the Wildwood Plantation was Morris Lewis. Okay. This is Chancery Court case term October term 1927. My great grandfather died December 1926. And in the will, his executor was J.B. Wilson, Merrill Lynch's uncle. Okay. And so this is what the it's a 34-page court case. And it talks about the Wildwood Planting Company, a corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi, domiciled in the town of Money, Florida County, Mississippi. And you're looking at 6 banks that had claims in some kind of scheme. You're talking about Canal Bank and Trust, Hibernia Bank and Trust, Whitney Central National Bank, still up and running in New Orleans, Whitney Central Trust Savings Bank, and Marine Bank and Trust Company, and Steel Bayou Corporation. Okay. All said 6 last name defendants being non-resident corporations and doing business in the city of New Orleans. So these were New Orleans bankers. Okay. And this person right here, E.F. Knoll, was the trustee. That name is important because he was the former governor of the state of Mississippi. So he was the trustee of this court, of this business entity. And they owed Mr. George Baskerville was trying to collect $27,000 at that time. Okay. And so 7-Eleven Tire and Oil Company was involved. But the key is Wilson here. J.B. Wilson. Right here, guy. Doing business under the firm Wilson Undertaking Company. So at that point, J.B. Wilson, he used to be the secretary of the Wildwood Plantation under my great-grandfather, Maynard McLean, in 1912, okay? And he used to be the plantation manager for my great-grandfather, Maynard McLean, okay? But now, and then he was the executor, and I'm gonna show you that will too, of Maynard McLean's will. And so that name is important because that's Charles Merrill's uncle. And so he's involved in this Chancery Court case where it's a lot. If you're talking about 6 New Orleans banks, you're talking about money, you're talking about wealth, and you're talking about corporations, guys, 34 pages. But I'm going to scroll down to the area that I think that will interest you guys of what the judge in this case is saying about the scheme. Bear with me. Talking about a lot of property here. Railroads, just a lot of property. A lot of in this line here, you know, you're talking about all of these, you know, townships are huge. When you talk about townships, you're talking about like almost towns, you know, like a Holmes County or something like that. You're talking about a large swath of land. You're talking about right-of-way leases, the right-of-way for Yazoo and Mississippi Valley Railroad, the Tallahatchie River, you know, the cypress trees 20 inches in diameter. So they're describing in this court case what's at stake, this property, and all the sections, and it explains to you where it is, the banks of the Tallahatchie. So we're talking about all of Money, Mississippi, what we're talking about. It's a complicated document, but it's a document of fraud and corrupt. And I'll just show you what the judge says. That says here, I think this is the right page. Complainants aver further that the deed executed by the said Morris Lewis to the said Steel Bayou Corporation on February 14th, 1927, heretofore referred to as Exhibit T and recorded in Book 60, page 35, was and is fraudulent and void for the reason that the said deed is a quitclaim deed executed by the said Morris Lewis for a nominal consideration of $100. And that said, Steel Bayou Corporation is not a purchaser for value without notice, and that the said Lewis had no title to convey to the said property mentioned in said quitclaim deed. And complainants further aver that during the year 1926 that the said Morris Lewis and the said Lewis Grocery Company and the said Merchant Farmers Bank and Trust received an appropriated large amounts of cotton, the exact amount of which is to complainants unknown, which was raised on the Wildwood Plantation in LaFleur County, Mississippi, and which cotton was disposed of, so complainants are advised and so charged by the said Morris Lewis and the said Lewis Grocery Company and the said Merchants Farmers Bank and Trust Company. And the proceeds of the sale thereof converted and appropriated by them to their use and benefit, for which there has never been an accounting, and complainants further aver that in addition to the proceeds of the sale of the said cotton, the said Morris Lewis, the said Lewis Grocery Company, and the said Merchants and Farmers Bank and Trust Company also sold large amounts of cottonseed, which was raised on said Wildwood Plantation in LaFleur County, Mississippi, during the year 1926, an exact amount of which is to complainants unknown, and which money was appropriated by said defendants for their use and benefit. And in addition, the said Morris Lewis and the said Lewis Grocery Company and the said Merchants and Farmers Bank and Trust Company dispose of a large amount of personal property then on said plantation belonging to the said Wildwood Planting Company, which they have never accounted, the exact amount of which are unknown to the complainants. Complainants aver further that Noah White, alleged substitute trustee, whose alleged appointment is of record in Book 43 of page 399 of the records of mortgage and deeds and trusts on lands of LaFleur County, Mississippi, And a copy which is filed herewith marked Exhibit U and asked to be made part herefore has advertised for the sale by publication in the Daily Commonwealth, a newspaper publication in the city of Greenwood, LaFleur County. Now, I'll start here. Complainants further aver that the sale advertised by the said Noah White, alleged substitute trustee. Now, this is the former governor of Mississippi, Noah White, alleged substitute trustee. So complaints are advised and so charged on information and belief is a simulated one, and that it is but a part and parcel of a scheme on part of the said Jonas H. Levi and James Levi, Morris Lewis, to acquire title, possession of all the said property, that the alleged indebtedness, if any, for which said property is to be sold, is not due. That the said Jonas H. Levi, James Levi, and Morris Lewis have conspired among themselves to advertise and sell said lands for the purpose of defeating and defrauding the creditors of the Wildwood Planting Company. That the said defendants, knowing that at the season of the year property will not bring anything like its value, even when sold for bona fide indebtedness, have conspired with the said Noah White, former governor, Mississippi, substitute trustee, whose appointment so complainants are advised and so charge was made so as to enable him to assist the said Jonas H. Levi and James Levi and Morris Lewis in the sale of the said property and acquisition of the same by the said Jonas H. Levi, James Levi, and Morris Lewis, that as substitute trustee, so complainants are advised and so charged that the said Noah White is fully advised of the fraudulent scheme and purpose on the part of the three defendants heretofore mentioned, and that it is his purpose to assist and enable as substitute trustee the three defendants to dispose of said property and hereby defeat and defraud the creditors of the Wildwood Planting Company. That the whole scheme is a fraudulent one conceived for the purpose of defeating and defrauding the creditors of the Wildwood Planting Company. So that there you go. That's just a brief reading of that. That I pulled the actual title of the property, and it's a cloudy title. And I believe it's a cloudy title because of this hearing, this case, this Chancery Court case. And so, but that didn't stop Charles Merrill, and it didn't stop the current occupants. The property was never sold, ever. They just occupied it. They just, all the way to Emmett's murder, they occupied the property. And this particular judge is trying to get a handle on the fraud and the corruption. Now, Noah White was a Klansman, okay? And the reason why they could not swindle this property like they've done so many others, because of the wills that were left on the property caused them not to be able to probate it. And then it says that they should have used the proceeds of sale of the crops grown on said plantation during the year 1926 to the payment of any interest that might have occurred or been due. That said, defendants, instead of applying the proceeds of the sale said crops to the payment of the said interest and the said bond and indebtedness have used the same for fraudulent purposes. For the purpose and with the intent of having said property sold under the mortgage securing said alleged bonds. There you go. And that the appointment of Mr. Noah White as substitute trustee was made by the said three defendants with their co-defendants, E.F. Noel. That was his nephew, E.F. Noel. No, I'm sorry, Noah White was the E.F. Noel's nephew, for the purpose of enabling them to sell and dispose of said property as to defeat and defraud the creditors of the Wildwood Planting Companies. So this document I'm reading, it's 34 pages. It's a court case. It's complicated, as you can see, and it's full of a bunch of men, powerful men, politicians interested in the 5,000 acres that Charles Merrill eventually got, along with the help of J.B. Wilson, as you saw in the first part of the document. So. Okay, got some other documents here. Okay, another document, guy. Okay. No, yeah, these are my family members from that. I guess this section was cut off. The researcher, did the quick dive about my Henry Bishop, Jim Carrey, Foy Alston, Jim Carrey, family members. Eliza Terrell is there. She's on the will that you're about to see. Will Terrell was a Baptist preacher who I was trying to get information from Mr. Hill from. And this is Maynard McLean's will. My great grandfather. J.B. Wilson, executor. So this is see that number, guys? That's 1932, October. You heard the lady say that their family got the property in 1932. Now I knew all that, right? Okay, they got the property in 1932. Sounds right. They bought the property for $75 cash because the executor, Wilson, says that M.S. McLean, deceased, they wanted to sell personal property and at a private sale. And that private sale was to Morris Lewis, who's all in that other court case. So this is 1932 when they finally, after the court case, 1932, they come back to the judge and say, hey, we can't find anyone, so allow us to sell it in a private, in a private sale for $75 cash, all his personal property and land. It's J.B. Wilson, executor, Merrill Lynch's uncle. That's something the executor of my great grandfather's will. And there are the witnesses. This came from the Greenwood Courthouse. Now this is coming up is this is written will, Maynard. Personal property appraised for $419. And this is J.B. Wilson signature, sworn, subscribed 9th day as the executor oath, 1926. And this is his will. I, Maynard S. McLean of Flour County, Mississippi, being of sound and opposing mind, do make, publish, declare this my last will and testament. Excuse me. I give, devise, and bequeath to Eliza Terrell, my family member, the Portwood Farm in said county of Flour County, and also all my furniture, autos, and cows and calves. I give, devise, and bequeath all the remainder of my property to Dr. Samuel H. McLean, my nephew of Jackson, Mississippi. Now, Samuel McLean was also the Surgeon General for E.F. Noel, governor. Okay. And then he says, I appoint J.B. Wilson of Shaw, Mississippi as my executor. Okay. And that's my great grandfather's signature. And so, and he says here, I don't want to leave this out. I give, devise, and bequeath all the remainder of my property to Dr. Samuel H. McLean, my nephew. Doesn't outline any of the land or anything. But here, that Portwood Farm that I was trying to get from Mr. Hill, he bequeathed Eliza Terrell. And we know there's schools there, and we know that, you know, furniture and automobiles in 1926. Okay. And so we found out that she's my relative. I believe she's my great grandmother's, Maynard's, black wife. She was married to a Baptist preacher. Okay. Eliza Terrell. And so we couldn't figure out for years, why didn't he name his wife or any of his children in the land? We couldn't figure out why Maynard, would leave it to Eliza Terrell, because we thought that maybe my great grandmother was dead. And but anyway, she never received any of this. Eliza, no, she never got any of this. She moved right after his death. The census, we tracked the census of her going west in Mississippi. So 1930 census, she was in another county. So, but they put newspaper articles looking for you know, her property or taxing her property or whatever. So she never received any of it. And so that's his will. And the answer to the question on why none of his black children that you heard Mr. Hill talk about receive recognition in his will. Reason being is because his father left a will. And that was the big problem in that Chancery court case. His father left the will of most of that land you saw in that court case. He left it to Maynard's grandchildren, his children. And so Maynard left his stuff to his nephew and my great grandmother's sister. So complicated stuff, very complicated, but it's worth pursuing in court. It's worth bringing proof. There's not a clear title to the property. And then the other thing about the property, I'll show you guys. Let's see if I can pull this up. This is July 27, 19. Okay, let me do it the right way here. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Wideness.
Take a look at your text, brother.
Huh? Let me look at my text here. Okay. 10 more minutes. Okay. All right. Let me come out. Just some boring stuff. I know. It is some boring stuff. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, this is all we have time for. So I went over that before. 1912, grandfather and these folk started the big time cotton. Think about it, guys. 1912 cotton, Mississippi. You making money, and so after his death, 1926, here they come. 1927, October 3rd, undetermined event. I know what it was. It was the shenanigans mentioned in the court case. Name reservation, 9/3/1927. This is after he died. So they dissolved it, the Wildwood Plantation Company. Why? To put the new incorporators, Morris Lewis, who you saw in the court case. Okay, so they dissolve it and then they rename it. They rename it the Money Planting Company, the same exact day, September 3rd, 1927. Incorporators, Morris Lewis and his wife. Okay, you can trust her. So these are the corporate documents of 1927. So when Maynard died in 1926, they dissolved the Wildwood Planting Company and installed new agents, and they call it the Money Planting Company. And then they go to the judge in the Chancery Court and say, hey, we found a buyer. And guess who owns it now? Lewis. Hey, we found a buyer in a private sale. So they sell it to him, but for $100, like you saw in the court case. Okay. So they sell it to him for $100 and you get 5,000 acres. And the Negroes are long gone. Okay. The same night Maynard died, they were gone. So that's how Charles Merrill got his start. And real quick, I know I only have a few minutes. Let me show you Charles Merrill's role in this corporation. Okay, let me hurry up. I'm rushing now. Let me see. Maybe this is it. No, that's not it.
It's gonna cut us off any second now.
Okay, well, yeah, I just wanted to show you, like I showed you that corporate document, and the election of the officers was wound up being Wilson and Merrill. They wound up being officers of the plantation, or the property. And so I'm sorry I couldn't pull that up. That I think that was very important for me to be able to pull that up to show you guys. I don't think this is, it's a newspaper article. It's something I have. Okay, so I'm not going to try and rush to share that, but I do have the documents. Okay. But the whole point is, prior to Emmett, you heard and you see some of the history that is cloaked in power. I mean, the most powerful part of Mississippi is where Emmett was murdered and lynched. That's you're talking about your wealthy Americans, you know, and a lot of it is wealth gained from blood of black folk. There's no doubt about it.